Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. Last week, didn't even get in the NFL stuff. Sorry, I know my schedule's been a mess. So we're going to try to focus on that. Obviously pre-recording, so I don't know who won the national championship in basketball. Not that I'm dodging it, right? Hopefully Michigan won. I might add a little bit extra to this show, or we'll get back to it next week once we have those finals. But NFL draft, I've been seeing a lot of people putting a ton of Ohio State guys in the top 10, which I get, but it has to make Ohio State fans feel horrible that you have 4 of the top 10 draft picks and you couldn't beat Indiana. Right? At some point, I keep seeing all these Cignetti memes floating into my timeline, probably because I like him. And then they're like, this guy likes Cignetti. We better show all his stuff to him. But I think coaching still matters, where I don't know if you saw the story from Cignetti, but they took one of the transfers in. I think he's from Michigan State. Came in, their big wide receiver. They said he wore gold shoes out, like gold cleats, to the first practice. And he said it just laid into him. Because he said, I'm not starting with any of that stuff, right? It's all about the team. And he needed to set the standard right away. And they interviewed him and he was like, yeah, coach, we never had that accountability before. And I think having that accountability helps some of these players fight their way through.
But you know what else helps? Having a national championship ring to be like, you're going to do it this way, and having a giant ring to flash in their face. Had they laid an egg in the playoffs last year, I don't know that type of tactics work, or that message is going to hit home if you can't back it up. And, they had about with their season, guess what? Nobody beat those guys. So it's not an Ohio State thing as much as it's a Cignetti thing. Everybody lost to them.
Well, see, even here, Ohio State lost to Miami still. I know Miami played Indiana tight. But in terms of talent, you'd have to have thought that Ohio State was one of the shoe-ins. The only team that had comparable talent in the Big Ten was Penn State, and they choked it all away and did a weird, we're going to flame out. Right? I still run into Penn State fans that are talking about the coaching change. And I've seen some people say, I don't know if you saw this tidbit, but they're saying hey, Matt Campbell, he's changing the culture here. Since we talked about that, you're saying you don't have a national championship ring, Campbell doesn't. But they're saying the big revelation out of Happy Valley is that now they do practice in the morning. Right? Because he said he used to do it at night, but he found out that they causes more injuries. Which then I saw an Iowa State random beat writer just list out all the injuries, pre-morning practices and after morning practices, and it was the same. So they're like, what's he talking about? Then that's how I know. It made me laugh that they're so bitter that they have random beat writers breaking down his Penn State press conferences, and they're like, this guy's a liar, right? You can't take him at his word. Okay, the morning practices. And then I saw a lot of Penn State beat writers slamming James Franklin because they said he had afternoon practices. Who cares what time the practice is, right? I mean, I know when I played college baseball, we had morning and we had evening practices. Sometimes it depended on schedules. I know this time in college football, it's totally different than small time baseball. But coach can kind of do whatever he wants with how many tutors they have. So if the players are having better team, whatever, camaraderie in the evening, do it in the evening, right? Practicing first thing in the morning. I mean, you're not going to have less injuries, right?
But a big part of that is it used to be more in line with what the class schedule was. You have to have these time frames where you're not scheduling your classes. But I mean, in this era, I would assume that they're probably all doing some form of hybrid scheduling type of thing, where they're probably doing some in person, some asynchronous. or at least that would be the model I would use, so that you're not tied down particularly to class. You have more time that you could be at the facility.
Well, even I'm surprised talking to colleges down here, even like JUCOs, or I guess like tech schools, whatever. Their class schedules still do the same old college schedule that I remember, where classes could run from like 8 to like 3:30ish, right? So it made sense that practice would start like right after that. Now the way they're Penn State's making it sound is like, oh, we're just practicing till noon, and then the guys are just taking their online classes together in the building, and then they go home. So it's almost like they're working a job, but then they're not really getting the college experience. And I'm not saying the other programs do it, because I know you hear comments from some of the quarterbacks transferring saying like, hey, it'd be nice to see campus every once in a while, right? We're in a football building across the road. So how much of this is going to come down to where you're building a culture, and is it going to stick? Because I hear the same thing on the Michigan side of things, where players are like, wow, we actually have accountability now. Coach like is in the weight room doing stuff, and I'm like, what's Sharon doing? Right? His arrest video came out where he's like crying and people are doing a deep breakdown of it. And I felt kind of bad for him, but it's like, buddy, what were you doing? Right? You had a guy that was like meticulously into detail as the head coach. You came up, you learned from him, and then you kind of relaxed everything. Because that's the number one thing that scared me. Forget all the off the field stuff. Anytime I hear like a coach and all the players are like, oh, he's a player's coach, I assume that means he's not like having enough attention to detail or whatever. Like he's not disciplining these guys. He's letting them do whatever. And it gives me a bad feeling. Because that was the thing that Sharon sold like during his interview or whatever. That's what the leaks were saying, is like he was selling that I'm going to keep the locker room together. And then it was funny because like Biff came in, Biff Poggi, and then he was like saying that when Sharon was going out, he was going to fix the culture. And it's like, buddy, you were there. Sharon hired you to fix the culture. So like you had to have known. Why are you fixing it now after he gets arrested? Otherwise, why would you stay there for another year or take a position? Because I think he was volunteering again. So the whole thing's a mess. So Whittingham coming in and saying like, hey, we have accountability now. Any accountability is better than no accountability. So we really don't know what it's going to be like. That's like the same thing with Penn State. I didn't see anything different where they were saying like, well, James Franklin, he's known as like a player's coach type guy, and he's great at like recruiting and game planning. He's just horrible in game. So he needs to step back and let someone else be there, and he be the head man. Because it can work. I've seen it with Dabo. Dabo, how many times down here in the Carolinas do I run into Clemson fans just complaining about NIL? It's like, give me a break, dude. Give me a break. No one knew about Clemson until they had their miracle run. They were the laughingstock. They're the biggest chokers. They're in the ACC. They didn't win anything. Clemsoning was a thing. Now they're like, we expect to be good. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just calm down. You're lucky you're even in a conference, right? No one's going to take you. If they're not going to take Florida State, they're not taking Clemson. Like if I had to pick, like we had a draft where I had to pick like, okay, me and like someone else is doing the SEC, and we had to pick like 3 new teams or 4 new teams to get to 24 or whatever. And we're alternating who we'd pick. I don't even know how high Clemson would be on my list, if I'm being honest, right? I would take Florida State probably number 1. Miami would probably be 2. Huh?
That's not a probably. Like, they would be number 1.
Not if I can get Notre Dame, though. Huh? That was a curveball to you. Yeah, you know Notre Dame would be number 1. As I said, probably. I don't know if Notre Dame would be included in this draft because they're independent, kind of.
Yeah, they just do what they want anyhow.
Well, I saw something for the basketball tournament where it was like showing like the women's basketball and like how Notre Dame had like a championship, and they were like bragging about it being an ACC championship. And I'm like, I consider them independent, buddy. I don't care if they're in the conference. Like if they're not in it for football, I don't care about other sports. Because someone was also saying how they haven't done anything for Big Ten in hockey. And I'm thinking, if they did win the national championship in hockey, I really wouldn't think it was a Big Ten national championship, right? Because no one would think, whoa, they're in the Big Ten for hockey. So it's like a whole different thing. Everyone associates them with being independent. So in strictly ACC terms, yeah, I would take Florida State number 1. I'd probably take Miami 2. That would depend, too, on the Notre Dame thing, because I really like Georgia Tech. I've said it before. Let's get us into Georgia for recruiting. And then I also would like to see UNC just to get into North Carolina, and for selfish reasons, because then they're close enough to me that every time Michigan comes into town, I could see some of our other sports in person. I like to do that anytime they come down here. So why would I take Clemson? Right? Because we don't need another football team. The Big Ten already has enough now. We don't want to get to the level where it's like the SEC, where they're like, remember Auburn used to be good? Now for Auburn to compete with Texas in there and Oklahoma, it's going to take a miracle. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm not being rude to Auburn fans. And that's why I'm surprised that their conference isn't trying to push a 2014 playoff like the Big Ten. Because I think the Big Ten realizes, like, oh man, like Indiana was a miracle and is a miracle. Like lightning in a bottle. They caught a great coach. Hopefully he doesn't go to the NFL or something. But teams like Penn State, if they make a bad coaching hire, or heck, even if Michigan makes a bad coaching hire like they did with Sharon, and they haven't made the playoffs, and then they bring in Whittingham, if he flames out, Michigan would have been in the playoffs in the 2014 playoff. Both years with Sharon. Heck, he won 9 games. How he win 9 games, I don't know. But that's where I think you have other teams from other conferences. LSU, they're panicking. Talked about it last week in the show, where they're just throwing tons of money at the problem. They're getting the governor involved. How is that going to help them? I'll never know. So that's my full circle. Like, even if the SEC were to take Clemson, what are they going to do? Clemson would be back on Auburn level so fast, where they're like bragging about 8-win seasons, maybe beating their rival. Well, I guess their rival would be South Carolina. So yeah, they'd probably still be beating them, but like they could be equals. You get in the SEC, you're instantly getting your team 4 losses, probably 3 losses. I mean, that's what the Pac-12 teams found out in the Big Ten, other than Oregon, and they still have a problem where they choke every time they're in the playoffs. So it's like, do we count these guys as good? I don't know. I don't know if Oregon's good. I still don't know. I'm looking at their list right now, and I see a couple, like USC has a guy up here in the top first round of the draft. And then Oregon has some guys up here, and even Auburn, Penn State, like teams that I've mentioned. Yeah, these are talented teams. But when they're all in the same conference, somebody has to lose. Somebody has to lose. SEC, Matt, they're in the 9-game schedule this year, right?
I believe so.
And the only reason I brought that up, because this is the last thing before I go back through the draft. Yeah. I saw the initial analytics, toughest schedules right now. Bro, it's ridiculous.
Load of crap.
It's almost every SEC team, and Michigan's like in the middle, like 3rd or 4th. And then it's like every SEC team. And then it goes like Michigan, and then the Big Ten is like trickled through out all the way down to like Rutgers, which almost has the easiest schedule. Which is just kind of a lie. Right? If they're in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten has won 3 national championships in a row, how is their schedule worse? I get Michigan because they messed up. We messed up and have like Texas on the schedule, I think, or Oklahoma for like a 4-year thing. Like, why? Why would we do that? Right? It might work out, but like we've seen in the past, having a tough schedule does not get you into the playoffs.
No.
You'd rather be undefeated. And then it depends on the team, right? Like BYU 100% should have been in the playoffs last year. But they were like, nah, you're just not someone we like. In fact, we were going to try to put Texas in front of you with more losses just because they're friends with the Manning family, right? So sorry, BYU. Now for the draft coming through here, what moves would you like to see? Because I think Mendoza has to be number one, right?
Yeah.
That's the Raiders, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
Did you see Genty talking about how bad Geno Smith was?
No.
Yeah, he was like, I can't wait to get a good quarterback. And then he said something like, I think any quarterback we draft is going to be better than what we had last year. Which is just horrible. Because Geno wasn't that bad, right? He was good at Seahawks.
Apparently he was bad because he got Pete Carroll fired this season.
I know. I like Pete Carroll too. I like winners, though. So it's pretty easy to get me on your side as long as you're winning. Right?
I agree.
So, I don't know. I think that quarterback, if he gets taken first, what quarterback do you think is going to be taken next? Because if you look at the quarterback draft list, Mendoza's up. Then you have Ty Simpson, Carson Beck, Taylor Green from Arkansas, even Nussmeier from LSU, and then Drew Allar from Penn State, and Klubnik from Clemson. Those are like the top group.
I would say just because of name recognition, Simpson is going to be the next one because they're going to tout that he played at Alabama. I think it's pretty much what are you looking to run within your offense, and can you match that to the skill set of the quarterbacks? Like it's another year where I feel like these are developmental quarterbacks. They're not plug and play guys. Like there's not a Joe Burrow type that you can go in and have him start right away as your quarterback. Like if you're reaching for a quarterback, it's developmental. It's giving him, you have somebody that can at least hold the fort down for a year or two until they prove where they're at. I don't know. What do you think?
Do you think, well, I think Simpson's going to be maybe the next guy, but there's a lot of smoke with him in Pittsburgh. Do you think he would fit in Pittsburgh? And did we talk about that before?
We did a little bit, and I kind of have still just had a little bit of what's the verdict on Will Howard? Like, are we just done with him? Was that just like I don't know.
Well, see, that's what I can't remember. Did we talk about that part? Because the leaks that came out is that the Steelers know Howard isn't a long-term solution. Now, however you want to take that, I don't know. But they know that what I've heard is that they've been pumping him up in hopes of another team maybe trying to make a move without actively having to have him have any game tape. Right? Where you could try to offload him for maybe some mid-round picks, and then you could bring in someone. But you still have him on a rookie contract, right? So you could, in theory, bring him in or keep him there and bring in Simpson or somebody and then have them battle it out and see what happens. But I still think the Steelers' move is that they know Aaron Rodgers is coming back. And so you bring in McCarthy, you bring back Aaron Rodgers, and they try to make one last run at it together. And then they can maybe go out on top together, which would be awesome for them, right? But if Ty Simpson really is going to be that like level, I don't know. And then even if, like, I feel like this round, like this quarterback draft isn't that strong. I'm probably going to be proven wrong where a bunch of these guys come out and be studs, right? But I think we're at a point where we're just on the other side. Go ahead.
Within recent memory, what quarterback draft in recent memory stands out as a strong quarterback draft? Because I was just thinking of this, where it's like every year I feel like we've gone through this where I've been like, well, there's not a quarterback that I would take in the first round. And I feel like I've been saying this now for at least the last 5 years, where I'm like, I don't know that I would take a quarterback with my first pick. And I don't know, is it the quarterback pool is down, or if it just some of the college game doesn't equate to what the NFL is wanting their quarterbacks to be. Like I just don't know.
So I'm looking at the NFL has like a listing. And so going back like 2004, that's way a long time ago. You had Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, and Roethlisberger. Right. Quarterbacks that kind of stuck around. And so then they have 2020 listed as the next one because that one had Burrow. This is the one I was thinking of. You had Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts. So that's what, 5? I'm not reading everybody on the list, like, right? I'm not thinking of anyone. 20 or 17 is the other one that I was thinking, but I really think that's just propped up by Patrick Mahomes, because he had Trubisky, Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and then like what, Dobbs, Taysom Hill. Like there's not that many that really stayed. I think Mahomes is like lifting that one up. 2018 had Mayfield, Sam Darnold.
That wasn't like the Mahomes draft. That was one where like that wasn't even a slam dunk, because he was coming from the air raid system. It's like, is he going to pan out as well as what we think? Like that was one where at the same time we were looking at Trubisky, and he was getting drafted by the Bears when Nagy was the coach, and it was like, okay, he's coming from Kansas City. They're running this run and shoot, fast throw style, like seemingly kind of similar RPO type system that he was running in North Carolina. It was like, maybe he has a chance to pan out if they're going to tailor it exactly the same way. And it was like, it just didn't materialize for Trubisky. I felt like Andy Reid did a good job with Mahomes of taking his athleticism and kind of molding it around his strengths. And it really showed through that he came out as the top tier quarterback of that group.
Well, that's why I think it's crazy that group, they have that group ranked as like the 3rd, and they have 2018 ranked as 4. This one I think is more well-rounded. You have Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. And then like dudes like Mason Rudolph later, right? With Sam Darnold winning the Super Bowl, now you at least have one Super Bowl out of that group. But like, you have more guys that are actively quarterbacking and playing minutes. Other than it, Deshaun Watson like probably ruined his career. But that out of the recent groups, those were the 3 classes that I could think of. I mean, in my head, I was thinking Burrow, Mahomes, and who else did I have? Lamar. Right? I knew those 3 classes are pretty strong, and I'm skipping a lot of these super old ones. So then if you're looking at like other more recent ones, 2023, like you have Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, right? And then I don't know if any of these other guys, Aiden O'Connell played for the Raiders for a while.
When you go back to that Tua draft, like there were some different options there of guys that it was like, I felt like it could be a pick'em type scenario, and you could find yourself a quarterback. You know, the Burrow draft, there were some options, and the one that really stood out was that Roethlisberger one, because it was like you still had Rivers, you still had Eli, you still had Ben, and like they were all 3 were projecting high. It was like dealer's choice. Which one do you feel? And all of them, in hindsight, had long careers that were productive in the league. That was like, pick them. What skill set did you think was going to fit around your quarterback? And with these recent classes, I just don't see those guys coming up through moving the needle in that same way.
Yeah, because even if I go back, like 2019, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, Haskins, and then like Gardner Minshew as like another one. Like it seems like there's a couple guys that might make sense in the recent ones, but like then you're getting down to like Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Fields and like Trey Lance, like that one's pretty much a dead class unless Trevor Lawrence picks up. 2022 is even worse. Kenny Pickett and then like Malik Willis, maybe Brock Purdy. That was the one where Purdy came super late. He might end up being the best out of that entire class. And then like that's it, recent ones. Well, I guess they don't have the ones from like last year or whatever on here, but now like you're right. I think we're at a point where the COVID had hit. People were staying for a lot of years. Quarterbacks now, when I look through the list here, even going down to like Klubnik and Drew Allar, these guys are seniors. You have Pavia, Aguilar from Tennessee, Haynes King, Luke Altmaier. Some of these guys probably could be good, solid quarterbacks. Like, it's like even Nussmeier from LSU, it's like, all right, we've heard a lot about him, but then you're not stringing it together. At some point, for me, I like to see a guy that wins, right? And that's where I would put, I know Carson Beck threw the interception at the end of the national championship game, but he's been a winner everywhere he's been. And so to me, sometimes that's more important. Same with like Mendoza. Guys that win, better. Like someone like Ty Simpson, Alabama still had a talent advantage though. So it's the same with like taking these Ohio State quarterbacks like Will Howard. I think Pittsburgh made the mistake last year of taking him. Whenever you have a ton of talent around you and you're not winning, and then someone like Mendoza's winning with lesser talent, it's kind of like mind-bending. Yeah, Carson Beck had great talent too at Georgia and at Miami comparatively, but he still outdueled Ohio State in the playoffs. And heck, went down to the wire with Mendoza, where one bad read, I don't know. Like Drew Allar is another one where if he would have came out and won the national championship this year, probably is going to be the number one quarterback. Like I don't know if he beats Mendoza and Mendoza like gets Indiana to the Final Four, like you said, if they're one and done, no one's giving him the Heisman. No one, they didn't want to give him the Heisman this year. People were like protesting it. So I don't know. That's my quarterback take right now. I'm still in the same position where I think that we'll see how teams are going to shift around. But I think the Steelers know they have Aaron Rodgers coming back. I don't know if they'll take a high draft pick on someone like Ty Simpson. But a lot of teams I think are going to wait. And so going through any other position, I'll kick it off here because I want to see how high Jeremiah Love goes. I think by far he's been the best running back in college football. I've seen guys that have been productive. Like I've seen guys like come out from like Michigan's run and stuff like that. I think Jeremiah Love's on a different level. And we haven't had a lot of running backs go high. But I've seen teams reaching for him. And whenever you have a running back Super Bowl MVP just kind of get cast aside, is he going to fall? Right? That's my prediction. I would be shocked if a team took Love in the top 10. Like I wonder if he's going to be one of the ones that just falls. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think the value's out on running backs. They don't last that long. Teams usually draft value in these early rounds. So that's my guy to keep an eye on. If a team reaches and gets him, they better hope he delivers. He better be Derrick Henry. Because otherwise, that GM's going to be in hot water. Is there anyone that stands out to you that's not a quarterback?
I mean, I feel like there's always room for wide receivers to hit. And yeah, I would say not any one in particular, but I feel like that would be a need that would help specifically Pittsburgh is going the wide receiver route. I feel like they expend a lot of picks, and I would be disappointed if they went quarterback first, unless they truly found a guy that they wanted to be as the day one starter. You know, and I don't know that there's a guy that has that. But I think, if you're looking at it, you're like, you know what, there's a guy that definitely we're going to move on from Rodgers. We're going to ride this out. Then I think you go quarterback. But if you don't, then I think you just stockpile, get some other weapons on the other side of Metcalf. Try to have it essentially set the table. If you feel, shore up the offensive line, get the pieces ready to go so that, you have, maybe running back is the route to go for Pittsburgh. If you don't have what you want in the backfield right now.
You think that they should go with Jeremiah Love if he falls?
Potentially.
So going against everything I'm saying here. But I guess it depends on how far. Because, to me, you bring up wide receivers. I feel like the way college has been going with a lot of these wide open air raid type styles, we see a lot of guys get hyped up. I buy into it, right? I see Ohio State has all these guys. They're going to be great in fantasy. They're usually hit or miss. I'm baffled sometimes. I see wide receivers getting mega contracts, and it's are they that good? Right. Smith and Jigba, right? What did he do in the Super Bowl? For them to throw a ton of money at him, it's all right, yeah, they kind of won by defense though. So is it really, couldn't they just get another wide receiver that's kind of just anybody? So I don't know how Carnell Tate's going high. Ohio State guys go high every time. It's basically a system that they run where they have wide receivers. Now, are they recruiting great wide receivers? Yeah. So some of it's a fulfilling prophecy where they get a bunch of 5-star wide receivers and then they're going to kind of work out based on talent alone. The NFL still drafts on talent, which is what I've been saying. So you got to look at value and talent. Now, could some of their 5-star wide receivers kind of fall out? Yeah, a little bit, but just because they're 5-star doesn't mean that they're going to stick around. Because every time I feel like Ohio State has a big wide receiver, how many years in a row have we heard that, whoa, this is the guy that's the best receiver of all time? It's every year. Right? They've had 20 guys that have been the best receiver coming out. And now Tate's coming out, and then Jeremiah Smith will be next. And it's okay, we get it, guys. Yeah, they've been putting up value and stuff like that, but it hasn't been... Honestly, we haven't seen a Randy Moss coming out of Ohio State yet. Someone that you're oh, wow, this guy's awesome. Even heck, Justin Jefferson would still be my pick next year. If you had me pick a wide receiver, I'd probably pick him. Do you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the LSU guys, didn't they have Odell Beckham Jr. too? So if you're talking about dudes outperforming their value, probably, I would say LSU guys have probably been performing a little bit better than what people expect. You hope Ohio State has a guy come out like Justin Jefferson. You talk him up, and it just doesn't seem like their guys hit that often. Because even some of the guys that I'm oh, that guy's good at Ohio State. He's going to be good at fantasy. He ends up being a wide receiver 3. And I'm oh, what a waste. What a waste of $20 I spent, huh? So I got to learn my lesson, man. But is there any other draft stuff you want to talk about this week?
But I kind of want to go back to this running back thing. And for the most part, I feel like the NFL's gotten to a point where they're running back by committee, so there's not a particular back that can be a standalone guy. But I feel like if you do have that bell cow running back, it does open up a lot of stuff in your offense. And I feel like when you look historically at some of these other running backs, like a Marshall Faulk, hell, even Jerome Bettis to a lesser extent. These guys that could take pressure off the quarterback where you didn't have to rely on the quarterback. And I think that having the running backs now is more important, or having a decent running back is going to be more important, because the quarterback pool right now isn't these guys that you can just say, we're going to throw 45, 50 times a game. So you're going to want to have a solid running back that can get you 4 to 5 yards a carry. And if you can have that durability to be able to sustain drives and get you into some situations where a quarterback can scramble, I think that's going to make your offense so much better. You know, where you look at like a Buffalo, Josh Allen ends up getting himself banged up at different points because he takes off running, or Lamar Jackson gets banged up because he takes off scrambling. And you only get so many of those opportunities, where I think like someone like Mahomes takes off and scrambles and he's able to slide, not take those unnecessary hits. You know, I think it extends plays when it's 3rd and 3 as opposed to we had to throw the ball in 1st and 2nd down, and now it's 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, and the defense just pins their ears back and smacks your quarterback.
Yeah, so, I mean, do you think the Chiefs' way of doing it, though, is going to be the future, where they haven't really had a running back-centric offense?
I think it's all ebb and flow. I think it's been that way more recently, but I think with like I just said, with the way that the quarterbacks are going now, I think there may be more of a return to a run game, heavy or not necessarily heavy, but running back focus. And if you have someone that can churn out yardage, I mean, to me, whether you're talking receivers or you're talking running back, if you don't have the offensive lineman giving you protection up front, I think that was one of the things the Chiefs hit on during their run, is they kept landing quality offensive linemen. And I think when you look at that compared to the Steelers, they've spent draft picks on offensive linemen, but they just haven't hit like they did in those early 2000s. You know, they had quite an offensive line already established before they drafted Roethlisberger. And I think, you know, not that you just pluck all pros out of the draft, but I mean, I think through that vetting process, you have all these extra draft picks. You know, that's going to be the first area that you make sure that you have the guys up front that can protect the quarterback of whoever it is, because maybe the plan is bring Rodgers back late. He's not mobile, so you're going to have to protect him if you're going to be running any type of passing centered offense. If once that's established, you get your speed receivers to spread them vertically, and now you really put them in a bind, because do they sit back and cover those receivers deep? That's going to open up the lanes in the run game. You know, if you can drop 8 in coverage and still get pressure on the quarterback and running and nullify the run game, good luck. You're not going to be a winning team.
Well, even looking at the draft here, I was looking it up while you were talking about quarterback like rushing to get over there. There really hasn't been any dual threat QBs, like not like back whenever Michigan had Shoelace, right? Where he's like running as a running back out there going crazy. I mean, they're talking about like Haynes King. I thought, Haynes King's a guy that's been like running the ball. He didn't even break 1,000 yards rushing. And I'm looking through the stats here of the other guys that are on the list here, and even other guys that I know scrambled around a lot, like Mateer at Oklahoma, he only ended up with 431 rushing yards. I know he didn't have a full season because he got injured, but like Cole Payton, they're talking about him being like an awesome running back or dual threat runner from the FCS level at North Dakota State, only 777 rushing yards. So looking just through the stats here, I don't see anybody, unless I'm missing someone, that has run even over 1,000 yards to do like a full dual threat quarterback. And maybe you're right. Maybe the league's drifting back to where, okay, we're doing more pro style. It's probably more of like the Mahomes level, where they see, hey, we want a guy that can escape, like Ty Simpson, right, where he's mobile in the pocket and able to throw on the run, maybe not putting up a ton of yards. He's another one on here, but it doesn't say how many yards he rushed for. So I could be wrong. I just didn't see him listed in the other stats here. But I just don't know if that's going to be the future. Because some of these guys, like Ty Simpson, he's still kind of small. He's only 6'1", 211 pounds. You're talking about Roethlisberger? He could take a beating, right? Mendoza's 6'5", 236. He could probably put on weight if he needed to. But a lot of these other first-round QBs, other than Carson Beck, who's also big, and Drew Allar, also big. A lot of these other guys are just smaller. And so I don't know how that shift is going to go, because I think getting a guy that's more of a mid-range, like shorter guy, he better be able to run and move around a lot like Kyler Murray, and I just don't see it in this draft, which is why I would still lean towards taking a big guy. If you can't get Mendoza because he goes number 1, I wouldn't mind seeing Beck or another bigger quarterback taken, because even Will Howard, I think, was smaller. And so that's where, like you're saying, if you don't have a good offensive line and you have a quarterback that's really more of a jack of all trades, it seems like some of these guys are, you're going to be hoping he doesn't get hurt. So, I don't know. Is there anything else draft-wise you want to talk about this week?
No, not necessarily.
Is there any other NFL things or anything you want to talk about?
Not off the top.
Well, we'll be coming back. I know we had to do this before even the Final Four had to do another early schedule, because with the championship games going crazy. Hopefully, like I said, Michigan makes a run. We're seeing a lot of the NFL teams start to get put in there. I've been seeing a lot of NFL draft ads, which is funny to me, because you're watching college basketball stuff, you're watching other sports, and you're just getting ads for the draft, which seems like it's weeks away. But one thing that have started up, spring football games. So I'll be keeping an eye on them. I don't think Michigan's is till the 18th. That sounds right. And I don't know which ones are on TV this year. But that'll be the one thing that we'll be bringing in. So if there's anything else that you want us talking about, we have the draft coming up, spring football. Let us know, and we will see you next week.